I'm Alison Roman, and welcome to Solicited Advice, the podcast where I get to do what I love most, give advice. Each week, I'm joined by a very special guest and several very special advice seekers as we do our best to solve all of, or at least one of, your problems. Today, my guest is my very good friend, Susan Korn, which you may know as the founder and owner of Susan Alexandra, which is one of my favorite brands in New York. She makes extremely delightful jewelry and accessories for humans and for dogs, gorgeous homewares, bespoke necklaces. It is a joy to know her as a business person, but also as a friend. And if you're in New York, you have to stop by her store because it is absolutely incredible. It is like full of radiant pleasure. Like she's just so colorful in the way that she approaches her life and her style and her product, and like really believes that fashion should be for everyone and that it should be fun and that it should be full of personality. And even before I knew her as a person, I really gravitated towards that sort of ethos as like a person living in the world trying to make something special. And she is unabashedly herself, and it shows in everything that she does and she makes. And so I am thrilled to have her on the podcast. Susan, I'm so happy to have you on this podcast. I don't know what it took me so long to ask you. I was like thinking of guests and I was like, oh my God, you know who I really want to talk to is Susan. Partly because I just really want to talk to you because you're my friend and I miss you. But also I feel like I ask you for advice all the time about like owning a business, about like being a woman in New York, about like how to dress. Like I am texting you constantly with questions and you always make time for me. And I just am really grateful for that.
That means so much to me. And I'm so honored. I was really, truly like very, very excited and honored when you guys reached out, especially because your guests are so esteemed. But also I love when you reach out to me because it's really shocking to me always that you need help with anything because you, to me, feel like the most self-sufficient person in the world. So like you coming to me, it kind of reminds you that people like to be called upon. Like you're not bothering people when you ask them something. You actually make people feel special and needed and important. And I never remember that. Like when you're like, what do I wear for this or this? And you actually like call upon me, I'm like, thank you. That makes me feel great. So it goes both ways.
You were huge in my wedding ensemble preparation. You went with me on my first wedding dress shopping excursion. You were like really there for me for that, which I will always remember and always be grateful for. And as a show of my appreciation, I invited you on this podcast.
Thank you. It all comes.
Yeah. But really, and you're right. And that's a really good point that I don't think that like we consider when we are asking for help. Like we constantly think of asking for help as being a burden. And that is actually the exact thing that I talked about with my therapist this week.
Really?
Ironically. Yeah. Cause I was like feeling very, how to say it without saying too much. I think I was feeling very like, I was like feeling very alone in certain things and like being like, but I don't need any help because I've never had help because I grew up this way and was taught to be self-sufficient and I'm so independent and I don't need anything from anyone. But like, that's simply not true. I need so much from so many people. And even just saying that, like, and drilling it into my brain that that's not a sign, that's like not a weakness. And that like, there's power and vulnerability of being like, I do need help because for so long I've like not needed help or told myself I didn't. And like, that's not a good way to live. I've decided.
I think it's also like, you know, something that we both connect on often is just like, how do we do it all? We both want really big lives and like, you know, maybe unabashedly so. And obviously we can't get to the levels that we so deeply want without help, but it feels like we have to burn the candle at both ends to get that. I mean, we both know that we're at a point where we can't sustain this level of exhaustion, of stress. I mean,
no.
I mean, I even like
to expand, to like fully reach our potential.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we both put so much pressure on ourselves. And I think for that leads us to great things sometimes, but it's hard. It's really hard. And we both, like I can say for you, we both need help.
Yeah.
We need help.
Yes.
And it is really, really like having a community that you can lean on. It's hard. It's really hard. But I wish that for both of us. And I think we have that to an extent, really, truly.
Yeah, we do. In each other and a lot of other good people in our lives. But
Yeah.
I think also like when starting this podcast, it like obviously was sort of more like lighthearted and like, what's like your neighborhood drama and like how do you order a martini, and all those things are really helpful. But I also am really enjoying the like other parts that like remind you that like perspective and advice and other people's experiences are really valuable to hear.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you are a giver and you take care of people. That's literally your job. Feeding people is taking care of people. So it's no surprise that you have a capacity to hold so many different things. I mean, I've been listening to your pod all morning and I'm like, they give you these questions that people bring to you are very heavy. But I'm like, of course you have space for that and you're not afraid of the dark. It's a part of your job. It's all about taking care of people. And I'm really impressed by that too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love to get into it. I love like to skip bullshit and really get in there. Yeah,
no small
a bullshit-free environment. Yeah, it's exhausting.
We're medium talk. We're not small talk. We're escalating to medium talk right away, right off the bat.
Oh, we just bypass the small. Absolutely. Yeah. And if medium is as big as we get, I'm actually okay with that. Like there's a time and a place for medium. Small talk is so draining to me. I'd rather not. And I'd rather like not to be rude. I'm just like, oh, we don't need to do this. Like I've seen you small talk. Exactly. It's not pretty. It's not good. I feel like everyone knows I'm full of shit if I'm small talking. I don't know. They're ripping up my street again, which is just how we live now. And I don't want to be like a New Yorker who complains about what it means to live in New York, which means like 90% of the time there's like construction happening outside your window and there's like, this, that, and the other. I don't want to be that person, but just allow me 20 seconds of it is extremely frustrating to like constantly have your street be ripped up outside your window.
Yes, absolutely. I can't deal with sound anymore. So I'm like, well, I guess I got to move because other people's sounds are an assault on my being.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ruining my entire chakra field, I've been told recently.
Yeah. I see that.
We can talk about that later offline. Yeah. I think we should take some callers. I think we should channel this energy. I think if you're listening to this podcast right now, know that you're catching Susan and I on a very, depending on how you look at it, a good day for something like this. Like we're feeling raw. We're feeling
fiery and raw.
Open. We're full of stuff. Yeah. Stuff to receive, stuff to give. Mm-hmm. So I think we should give it.
Let's do it.
I think it's time to take our first caller, and we have her on the line. Her name is Charlotte. Charlotte, how can we help you today?
Hi, so I have a question. It's about one of my best friends for over 10 years. She's literally the best. Like, we are so close. She's so funny, so smart. There are things that I have told her that I have not told anybody else. And ever since I've known her, she's always had a boyfriend. And the next boyfriend always appears with a little bit of cheating and a little bit of overlap with the prior boyfriend. And that always made me uncomfortable. But a couple years ago, she met this guy, and the narrative very much was like, yes, she's cheated in the past, but she just was like cosmically waiting for this guy. He's the one, and therefore she'll sort of never cheat again in the future. And a couple months ago, we get a little text in the group chat saying like she was on a business trip abroad, and she texted us being like, LOL, like so hard to find UTI medication when you don't speak the language. And so we all sort of were like, oh no. And we kind of just were like, so like, did you sleep with this person already? And she was like, yeah. She basically like met a guy while she was out.
Susan, what do you think?
You know, I want to say that, Charlotte, I think your friend and all of your friends are really lucky to have someone in their life who is so committed and so loving to them. Like even the fact that you're like, I'm here, let's get you through this, and then let's come together and figure out a solution. I think that's a really beautiful thing, and really good friends are hard to find, and it sounds like you're a really good friend.
Thank you.
I think that I was just looking on my phone for this quote that a friend and I were just talking about a friendship that was ending between her and her friend because of some values that they don't share. And the thing is, in this world, especially right now, our values are all really, really or what we care about is really different. But at the end of the day, if we care about the same thing, maybe a different route getting there, it's kind of like it can work. But if we totally are at like odds with our ethics and our moral compass, then it's really hard to be in a relationship with that, especially your best friend. Obviously I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but it does sound like this person has some significant things that happen to them where they think that cheating is probably something that aligns with how they see themselves or how they see love, their self-esteem. So I have compassion for that person. That doesn't mean that you have to be around that, because it's a really uncomfortable thing, and it's really not something that obviously sits well with you for a good reason. And I think that you do also have to assess when it's time for friendships to kind of fall apart, because friendships evolve and change, and maybe this isn't the person. Maybe you can love some of them. I don't know. It's hard. I have so many messy friendships.
Yeah. I think as you get older, it also becomes less of like okay, well, you're no longer in my life. Like it's less cut and dry and more, how can this person be in my life in a way that feels good to me? And that means like, it's kind of like a demotion where you put people into different buckets, because you're like, you know what, this person has let me down too many times. And when they let me down, I take it too personally. There's conflict where no one's happy. It's a mess. But yet there's something that like bonds you and keeps you coming back. And like, there is something good there, right? Like there is value to something about this person. So how do you allow that in while not allowing these other things to really affect you? And it can take a lot of conditioning and a lot of sort of like reconfiguring how you communicate with this person and your expectations of them. But I've done this before in recent years where like I realized that the friendship wasn't either what I wanted or what I needed, but there was still stuff there worth saving. So you kind of just say like, well, you know what? This is like no longer inner circle. This is like outer ring inner circle, or like the inner ring of the outer circle. Like you're kind of pushed out a little bit, but you're still in the mix. Like, of course, like we can have a laugh. We can have a beverageino. We can be on the group chat. Yeah. We can like do stuff peripherally, but like when it comes to who you hold close as like, these are my people, and like, here's who I align with and who I want to like aspire to be more like, who teaches me how to be a better person, blah, 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 blah. Those people are going to ebb and flow, you know? I think it's a really good thing to like approach the situation and be like, hey, I'm really sorry if that was out of bounds, and like make your peace and be like, you know what? I offered my opinion where you didn't ask for it. And I'm so sorry if that hurt you. And like, I totally get it. And like, I hope we're cool. You have the option to apologize in the way that makes you feel like you're growing as a person and you're owning up to what may have not been the best way or version of yourself to handle the situation, if you think that's true. Like, I don't believe in apologizing if you're not sorry. But if you're like, oh, you know what? Like, I can see how me offering my opinion at a moment, they didn't ask for it. They're probably not ready to hear that. And I could see how that would not be well received. And you can kind of apologize for the things that maybe you wish you had done differently, and then file that away into your own personal checklist of like how I want to grow, how I want to handle conflict. But I wouldn't expect them to like all of a sudden turn into the friend that you want them to be. I think sometimes people aren't ready to hear something that feels tough. Yeah. And that can be true. And you finding a different way to deliver that information at a more appropriate time can also be true.
Yeah, totally. I think obviously everything you just both said was so great. One thing that you said that I think really is so interesting is like the delineation between when someone does a personal attack to you, when it's like a friend. And I think that was a hard thing for me to learn how to navigate, because when you have so much love for someone, even if they like maybe are hurting you, you kind of want to stick around because of how much you care about them. But at a certain point, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to put up with this pain anymore. And when it's towards someone else, I think you can kind of, at least I feel like sometimes I like devalued how much that hurt me, because it did hurt me that she did that, even though she didn't do it to me and it wasn't about me. And it didn't even make me feel like she would ever do something like that to me. It just made me feel like we had made a promise to each other to kind of be like the best versions of ourselves. And then she kind of broke that promise to me. And I think also I felt a little bit like as an extension, like I'm now betraying this person that I've spent time with over the past 3 years, because when you have that kind of relationship, like your community is part of it. But I think an apology definitely sounds like a good next step. I think I needed to like hear from an outside person if that apology was like me just bending over backwards to like fix something, or if it's real. And I think hearing it from you guys, like, yeah, like I don't think my timing was good, and it was like well intended, but it was too soon, and I like didn't ask her if she was in the space to like have a hard conversation. And I think also one thing I'm hearing in all of this also is like, it's allowed to be a deal breaker for me that I don't want to be around people that are cheating on their people. And that can be like a decision I make for myself. And to your point, like no friendships need to be ended. They can just be shifted.
Yeah. And I will say that over the course of the many years I've been on this planet, my friend groups have shifted tremendously for the better. Most of the time it's because it's that friendship is no longer what it was when it began, and I'm no longer who I was when it began, and it's okay, and you have to do what's best for you, and not because, and you know, like I think it's so nice to not have anger or grudges between two people. So if you're saying, hey, I've been thinking and I want to apologize to you for this or this, it's nice. It's a weight off of your shoulders, and you know you've done what you could do. But I do think that there is a point that we all need to assess if things are not serving us, just letting them go, you know, working hard to make it as, you know, keep your side of the street clean, but like letting things go if you need to.
It's not my strong suit.
It's so freaking hard.
I don't know. It's just, things really evolve, and I think having that conversation with her and seeing where it goes. But I think you would be remiss if like that was the end of the friendship, because it sounds like there's something there worth saving. But it is interesting how the older we get, different things come up that weren't like revealing of themselves when we're younger, of like, oh, what is this kind of person? What would they do? How do they conduct themselves? What are their morals? And once those things start to come out as you're like faced with different circumstances, you're like, oh, that's so interesting. I would so not do it that way. That is so not my vibe. Like either how they handle money, how they treat their employees, how they vote, like whatever their attitudes are around like current events, you're like, oh, wow, that's really telling. And if I met you today, I don't think we'd be friends, just based on your value judgments that maybe you didn't know before.
Like the way that this all played out, like I think going into it naively, I felt this sense of like, okay, like we're obsessed with each other. We trust each other. You can trust me. You know how much I love you. Like we can have this hard conversation, and understanding that that's not the place she was in. And then also feeling really let down by the way that like that conflict is being handled, of just like dropping no word like that.
That to me is
I feel like that's a thing that I didn't.
Not red flag, but like that's to me the core issue of like, and that tells you a lot about that style of communication and conflict, of just like, instead of saying, hey, that really upset me and that was out of line and I didn't appreciate that, they're like, there's nothing. And that to me is like very tough. It's tough to come back from. I get that. But I think you should do everything in your power to like make you feel good about the person you're becoming with the situation that you have. Yeah. You know, and like feeling proud of yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for the wonderful question. That was fantastic. I hope it resolves itself, or you help it resolve.
I hope so too. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. You're asking the good questions, I think. This episode of Solicited Advice is presented by Maker's Mark. When you think of Maker's Mark, you probably think of their iconic bottle with its perfect quirky shape, all dipped in that dripping red wax. As if that bottle couldn't get any more perfect, did you know that the first version of that signature red wax was stamped on that bottle by Maker's Mark co-founder Margie Samuels in her very own kitchen, in her home fryer? Iconic indeed. Maker's Mark brings their dedication to craft to everything they do today, including that same classic red wax on each bottle. Every bottle of Maker's Mark is hand-dipped before it finds its way onto shelves and to your home bar. And if you didn't think that was impressive, let's just say I did try to do this and I was terrible at it. So next time you're out and about, grab a bottle of Maker's Mark handmade bourbon and toast to doing things the hard way, like hand-dipping bottles in red wax. Because sometimes harder is better, and because you care. Cheers. Maker's Mark makes their bourbon carefully, so please enjoy it that way. Maker's Mark Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 45% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2023 Maker's Mark Distillery Incorporated, Loretto, Kentucky. You know what I'm really shocked by this podcast? I feel very blessed that the callers are pretty young. They keep me young. But they're all so like aware and asking like really important questions that I think are like, just even asking the question is worth so much in like your story of like becoming a person. And that's like also the other thing about doing the show is that like you don't always have to have the answer, but just even talking about it or like offering it up as like here's an opportunity for doing something different or possibility or like I have a choice or like even like positing that like you have autonomy over like how your life can be is just like so beautiful to me. And these young people, I swear to God, really are just doing it for me.
Yeah, and it's also like you know, I think at this point we've had so much life experience in the way of friendship, social dynamics, so many things that it's like even if we're no experts on this, like we can say what we've done in this situation, which we've definitely been in some iteration. So I think that's really, really cool.
It does so much to have age on your side in this instance. I feel like I think about it all the time about aging and like what are the benefits of it and like how wonderful it can be. And there's just like so much stuff where I'm like, I would have not known that 8 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Like there's just so much. And that gives me a lot of hope and excitement for like 10, 15 years from now. For those of you listening at home, we're going to try to get through this without my internet cutting out, which would be a real miracle. All right, Susan, I think we should take our next caller, Patrick.
Let's do it.
On the line, live in studio, via Zoom, via the World Wide Web. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here.
Oh, the honor and privilege is all ours. How can we help you today?
Yeah, so it's not so much a question as in more so just needing a sounding board for some like big life changes that are kind of been on my mind for the last few years that have just kind of more concretely appeared. So I'm currently in Chicago. I've lived here for about 5 years. It's not always been like my like goal to stay here. And I have just been visiting New York a lot, whether it be for work or for friends, for fun. And I really want to move there. And I have like made it the decision that like when my lease is up this year, I'm going to move to New York. However, I'm just kind of terrified because like in my 20s, moving, fine, easy. I could do it, you know, so seamlessly. But now that I've built a community and I've built up like a life here, it just feels so daunting and I don't really know where to start and to know if I'm like making the right decision or if I'm being like sick and twisted to myself.
Do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
What you don't hear is that we just were like kvetching about living in New York and how much it sucks. Okay, I have a few follow-ups. First, do you have friends here in New York?
Yeah.
Like do you have like some semblance of community?
I do.
Okay. What are the things that appeal to you most about living here?
Yeah, so I think, you know, it's kind of what everyone says. I think a lot of it is the energy, the opportunities. You know, I have a job that is based out of New York, and so that would give me opportunity to be in office more. But mostly, like, I miss the newness and, like, the blank slate of starting a new page and just kind of being, like, out of my comfort zone. I feel really comfortable here. And obviously the tastemakers like you two are living there. So like, you know, I want to be in more of a community of people who I feel like are like-minded and wanting more out of their life. Not to say that people here don't, but yeah.
You just want something different.
So like all of that said, like I have been really just curious, like, I don't know, especially like what neighborhood to move into. I've looked, you know, all over Brooklyn and Manhattan, and Brooklyn has really been catching my eye. And I know you've just met me, but I'm very curious, like, what's the vibe? Where should I
What are you giving?
frequent?
What neighborhood is Patrick giving?
What's he
What
giving?
am I giving? Yeah.
Kind of like your area.
I was gonna say like
Right?
Yeah, I'm getting like Fort Greene sun with like a Ridgewood moon.
Do you want to? Yeah, Ridgewood moon. Do you want to go out? Are you at a point in your life? Well, yeah, because you want to meet new people, so you probably want to go out.
That's a great
at
question,
night.
Susan. That's a great question. Like how? Yeah,
Right?
how out
So,
are you? Like
maybe Bushwick. Maybe Bushwick.
No, I
not
love to
trying
go
to
out.
let
I love to
anyone
be a
know.
social girl. I love to be a girl about town.
No, right. Okay. Well, also the thing in New York is you can go anywhere really fast. Like,
Yeah, that
really
doesn't
easy.
matter.
You don't have to. Okay, so maybe Fort Greene with Ridgewood Rising.
So you're not the first person to tell me Ridgewood.
yeah, probably more
Yeah.
than Fort Greene, but I can see. I think that like because of Fort Greene's proximity to Bed-Stuy and the city and Brooklyn Heights and Ridgewood, like it does feel kind of central for many different neighborhoods. If you want to, God forbid, go to Williamsburg, you could be there pretty quickly. And it feels like a good landing pad for which to explore other neighborhoods. And my advice would be, because I think we've established you're moving to New York, you got to do it. And the only reason you need is that you're feeling drawn to it and you want to explore and you want to grow and you're not done growing and you want a new city to grow in. And that is the only reason you need. And I think book your ticket tomorrow, stop overthinking it, just commit to being in New York.
Yep.
Know that the first apartment you land in won't be your last. And I would do yourself the favor of not trying to find the perfect place immediately and just be like, I want to be somewhere central. I want to be somewhere lively. I want to like plan a long weekend, come to New York, see as many neighborhoods as possible, let your friends take you out, get a sense of like where the things that you're interested are. Cause you can make a neighborhood anywhere because New York gives so much. I am really glad that I live in my neighborhood that I live in now at this stage in my life. I don't know that when I moved here when I was 24, if that's where I'd want to live, So I think there's like the right place for the right time, just because of what it offers. But like, don't stress too much about finding the perfect place and perfect neighborhood right off the bat. I think just being like, what can I afford? What fits into my budget? What's not going to feel isolating? What's not going to feel like I'm spending all my money in Ubers or Lyfts getting to a place because the train access is so poor. Like, think kind of logistically and then be like, cool, I did like a 6-month sublet or like I signed a year lease and I'm using this as like setting the stage for the rest of my time in New York.
Yeah. And I want to add, Patrick, that what I always feel is really important is that magnetic pull you feel to a place. I felt that to New York my whole life, and here I am. And I also did the Chicago to New York pipeline and moved. Yeah, I'm from Ohio, and then I went to school in Chicago, and then from Chicago to New York, and now it's been 15 years. But I never felt connected to Chicago, and I did feel that connection to New York. And that's not to say it wasn't one of the hardest things a human can do. You're in a way better place. You're like a grown up. You have friends here. You're talking to Alison, Roman, like you're in a good place right now in your
We're getting
life.
martinis at La Dive tomorrow, Patrick. Be there.
Yeah, we're going to La Dive.
Yes.
Allison's totally spot on, and that's such thoughtful advice. I think I've moved 12 times since I've lived in New York. So
wow.
you have to, the other thing you keep in mind here
People love
is
to
that
move here.
especially, you're like, yeah, moving is always happening, but you're not moving to New York to nest. I mean, that doesn't seem like where you're at either. I'm
Yeah,
like in
no.
my nesting phase. I'm in my like little, under the covers, eating soup all 24/7 vibe, which is like, maybe it's time for me to move, but you come to New York for this connection, and that is that life force in the city, like this connective tissue that makes magic happen. It really does exist here. Like, it's what I've built my life on. So you're gonna have that here within a year, and then so just know you're not going to be spending much time at home. Find a place that's safe, close to the train, looks reasonably clean. And you'll make it happen.
Reasonably
You
clean.
will. Reasonably clean, you never can really tell.
You really
It's not until you
Yes.
move in that the roaches start coming, no matter what. But I live in the city, which nobody does anymore. And it is really nice. Like, I do walk everywhere. But I'm also
Yeah.
really close to the train. I'm not close to the train. I actually have to schlep to the train, but the train isn't far to get to anywhere. Like Allison's neighborhood, it's probably 20 minutes. So It's easy. You live in Chicago. You're used to taking public transport probably. So
Yeah. So another thing that kind of happened too was I had a friend who recently moved there from Chicago, and they have a romantic partner that has now expressed interest in moving to New York there with them after I've kind of been told that that would never be the case. Or maybe not never, but just not going to happen anytime soon. And, I was really excited about the prospect of like, okay, my friend moved there. Will be a good landing pad for me and like a good resource for me. But now that their partner might be moving there, I'm worried that all of their time that I would have loved to have would be kind of encroached on. And so I'm curious about how to navigate that. And also just knowing that like, I'm also recognizing my own jealousy in there and like projections of wanting a certain type of experience.
Yeah. Well, until they have a plane ticket and an apartment, don't believe that they're moving to New York. Everybody wants to move to New York. Not everybody does.
Please. Yeah.
So don't worry about that.
Good advice.
Also, I think you're going to really surprise yourself with like, you'll get exactly what you need here. And whether it's like time with a person you already know or not, I think we use people that we already know as like a crutch here in our lives, like with friendship, like, oh, we're going to like go to this place. We're going to go to a new city and we're going to like see the one person that we know there. And like, that's going to be our experience. And I think it's a real gift to not actually have that security blanket for that long. You know what I mean? I think like maybe being forced to wean yourself off of the person that you feel safest with here, like you'll meet people through them immediately. And then it'll be sort of from there, you're going to be like, oh, it's so weird. Like my only friend here, like I barely see anymore, but I see all these other people that I met through that network of people, interests align, or maybe you and your friend and their partner will all become really close and the three of you will hang out all the time. And that'll be like a beautiful new style of friendship that you weren't expecting. And, I think a lot can happen, but I wouldn't worry too much about what could happen or might happen before anybody is actually living here. Like, don't let that let that freak you out.
Where I fall into.
Yeah.
Don't I know that sinking feeling when you're like, when your best friend says that they're bringing like a +1 and it's a date and you're like, but wait, that feeling is awful. But I totally agree with Alison that the throuple ship could be okay. It could totally be okay. Also, not to be like the person who's like, back in my day, I walked to school with no shoes, but I moved here without a soul, like nobody. And then I did like rub together any Chicago friends I could, even people I really didn't like, and hang out with them just not to be lonely. But that didn't last very long because you do start accumulating people. It's like that magic trick when you're traveling by yourself and people approach you because they feel that energy of like openness emanating from you. You're going to totally attract people. Also, you're probably going to get on apps and start meeting some cute people, and you're going to probably like fall into a relationship too. So you're not going to be able to hang out with your Chicago friend anyways. So there you go.
Yeah.
I love that manifestation.
Yeah, we have to manifest that.
Susan is such a romantic. She's like, and you're going to fall in love.
I love that.
Like, it's so wonderful, but it's also
we have to believe it.
I know.
We have
I
to
know, but also like, this is amazing. Oh yeah. This is an amazing city to come and like go sit at the bar and have a martini at the restaurant that you've seen everybody go to. Because you're like, these seem like my people. And you go and you're like, wow, these are my people. Or you're like, wow, this is not my vibe actually. But through that experience, you're like, well, what about this place is around the corner? And like just leaving the house, walking around, poking your head in places. It's like you get to be a traveler all over again and truly one of the best cities in the world. And like, I'm so envious of you because I'm so jaded. I'm like, I guess we'll go to Servo's again.
Gosh.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't ever do anything like, different.
Another night at Keen's. Yeah. It's so true.
Boring. No, it's not boring. Every night at Keen's is perfect. Susan and I moved to New York the same time, like within 9 months of each other, but we only met, 8-9 years later. Like you never know who you're going to meet, who's also on this trajectory and the one that you're on. And like, it can take 10 years to find one of your best friends in New York. You can meet them in the first week. Like it will give you so much. But yeah, I'm getting Ridgewood, but don't count out Lower Manhattan. I think as people that are especially moving to New York think that they're supposed to live in Brooklyn or like that it's more affordable, sneakily, Lower Manhattan has actually become, I think, weirdly more affordable in certain pockets. And especially if you're like, I just want like a small little abode just to like put a few things, but like I'm not interested in actually being home that often or like hosting dinner parties, then like you can get something a little smaller and maybe more central and like vibier to start. And then a year and be like, okay, I'm ready to like explore these other parts of Brooklyn that are like, you know, feeling ready to like settle down into.
Where in Chicago are you right now?
I'm in Andersonville. It's,
Okay.
north.
So Andersonville is like akin to, this is probably going to be controversial, but like Andersonville might be like parallel to, God, not New York. Well, it'd be like Queens. Okay. It'd be like, sorry, that is New York. But like, you know, kind of calm vibe, but really cool people, very diverse. Astoria. So there'd be like an Astoria, which we totally didn't even touch on.
Yeah.
Yeah. The food's good there. The Greek grocers are incredible. So, hey, there's also Astoria.
Astoria is great.
This is really helpful.
All right, Patrick, we're thinking of you and we can't wait to run into you at all the places we go.
Thank you.
So I have very, very dry skin. I have like a little bit of rosacea. I'm also 38. I also honestly am so lazy and hate doing a skincare routine. But the rare exception is when you find a product that you love so much that you are like excited to use it. And that was the case when I discovered CeraBalm. I got it as a free sample after my facial at Rescue Spa. And I was immediately hooked and texted my friend who's a beauty editor and said, have you heard of this product? Why is it so amazing? Am I being tricked? Like, what's going on? And she confirmed, no, it's just a really great product. Something that you can use to take off your makeup, something that you can use as a facial cleanser, something that you can use as sort of a, you know, spot treatment healing balm. And I am in for any product or clothing item or ingredient in my pantry that you can kind of use for multiple things. I don't love single-use items. And as a person who is skincare curious but doesn't want to devote their entire life to it or more than 10 minutes, honestly, I have found this product to be an absolute miracle for me. It doesn't have a fragrance, which I love. It doesn't make me feel like sticky or tacky. There's no like harshness to it. My skin looks beautiful and hydrated and glowing every time I use it. And it is maybe one of my top finds of 2023. If you are curious yourself, you can go to danuserra.com and shop for this delicious product. Also a great gift to yourself or to anyone else in your life that might be skincare curious. And that is danuserra.com, DANUCERA.com.
Well, Patrick, I can't wait to be friends with him. I can't wait to run into Patrick over martinis.
I know. I'm like, should we?
9 Orchard.
Should we exchange numbers? I know.
We have his information.
His vibe is not. Yeah.
No, his vibe is not 9 Orchard.
Really
his vibe is clandestino, Ladiv. Like I'm going to see him out there next summer on the patio.
Do we love Ladiv?
I think we do, but I don't think we have like. We do. I think that the people who own and run it
it's
and
not
opened
our
it.
place.
I don't feel like it's my place specifically. It is a place that could be for me, but I'm not like, oh, I'm home. You know what I mean? Because it's everyone's home.
It's not home. It's not home for us, but I do like, I'm not mad at it.
No.
In the summer, it's a spectacular, you know,
but like everyone's there. It's like everyone's staring at everyone else. It's like a little bit like a person on parade energy. And like, it's not a chill place if you want to like go have like a non like ogling sort of like.
No. It's a to be seen place. It's to be seen there, which is a lot.
Like I'm not going there on date night with my husband, or even like on a date night with you. I'm not.
No,
like, I mean, I guess I would.
No, you don't go there with. I know but we would have to know that we're going to be seen. We'd have to get dolled up.
We would go at 5:30 and sit inside at the corner in the corner.
If we were going, we would do that. But if I was like 7:30 Ladiv Thursday night, we'd be like, okay, well, I have to go get a facial or I have to get my hair, get my roots touched up. You know, it's not like a low key place.
No, we have to put an outfit on. Okay, now it's time for my favorite portion of the show. Well, it's all my favorite part, but
me too. I love this part.
Yeah, Chef's Kiss Hotline. We're going to take some recorded calls. People call in with their quick sort of one-off, mostly food focused, but not always, questions for us. So feel free to chime in. I'm not an expert. I'm just an enthusiast. So let's take our first caller.
Hi, Allison. This is Carolyn calling from Washington, D.C. And I'm wondering when you use white pepper. I've used it like once in making this vegan ranch dip, which is somewhat of an oxymoron. And now it's just sitting in my pantry, and I'm wondering what you would do with it. Thank you.
Well, I wouldn't. I would throw it away. I would honestly would throw it right in the trash. Don't use it. It's has like a weird floral taste, and that is like not like a quote chefy answer. Like, of course there are reasons to use it. Of course recipes call for it. But like, I'm never going to ask you to do it. So unless you have like other books of which are using like that blend of spices, like some people will have you grind it up and like with a black peppercorn and a pink peppercorn and call it like 3 peppercorn cacio e pepe or something silly. And I just like, when I worked in quote fine dining restaurants, I used a lot of white peppercorn. It was like a thing that we like filled our pepper mills with equal parts white and black peppercorns, and it gave our food a special flavor. And I just like can't be bothered. It's a lot of people have a real aversion to it actually. But to me, it falls under the category of specialty ingredient that is like not worth the presence in my pantry. You won't catch me using it ever. It's not to say it's not valuable to some people. It's not valuable to me. So my answer for this question is don't use it and get rid of it. Someone else might have a very wonderful other answer that says how to use it, but I don't have one.
Hey, this is Curtis from Brooklyn. I was wondering if you had a preferred kind of pastry brush you like to use. I feel like I've gone through so many terrible ones. They always end up leaving bristles behind on my food and end up completely falling apart when I wash them. Am I alone? Am I washing them too aggressively? Or am I really just overthinking it? And are pastry brushes one of those nice to have but unnecessary kitchen tools?
I use paintbrushes from the hardware store and I replace them often.
Do you really?
Yeah. Yeah. And any of the other ones that you're finding, avoid the silicone brushes. They're stupid. They don't hold on to anything.
Really?
They're way too gloopy. They're way too heavy. They're gross to clean. Like, honestly, a pastry brush is $2 at most. And so it's like, just accept the fact, like, what, are you opening a bakery? Like, why are you blowing through them so quickly? I can't find the brand. It might be Winco. Yeah. WINCO. That's like a very standard, but it is literally a paintbrush. But you shouldn't be spending more than like that small amount of money on a pastry brush, and you're going to replace them often. They're not meant to like stand the test of time. But I mean, I've had my pastry brush for definitely over 2 years, and I have never thought about replacing it, but I just wash it immediately. I never put it in the dishwasher, hand wash only. And the bristles don't come out, but I'm also not like using it that often. I'm using it like maybe 10 times a year.
So really a paintbrush from Blick or something?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like that will work 100%. Because if you think about it, it's like the same thing. You don't
makeup brushes there too?
Yeah, probably, honestly. Ask Jen.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be like getting paint bristles in your paint when you're painting. So those need to be sturdy too. It's all made of the same material. Like any boar bristle brush. Avoid the silicone, TLDR.
Allison, it's Michelle from Morris County, New Jersey. I can't believe I could not copy and paste the phone number that you tagged on Instagram. However, I love you, dear. And what I need to know is how much I should stir my beans, because I love your stews, bean stews, but I overstir. And I really don't know when I should stir and how often, because they get too mushy, too gross. And when I see your final product, delicious, intact. Beans look phenomenal. Thank you. I love you. Congrats to you and your hubby. Congratulations. Bye.
Thank you. We are also upset that you can't click on the phone number. Believe us, it keeps us up at night. But Susan, do you cook beans?
I do. I cook
You
your
do?
recipes.
Oh,
Like
no
all the
wrong, no
time.
wrong answer.
Rancho Gordos, babe.
Yeah.
No, I do. I do.
I don't stir them really at all ever. And I also think if they're turning to mush, you're probably either overcooking or they're cooking at too high of a temperature. Because most people have the opposite complaint that they never fall apart, they never get soft. But if yours are just like mushy, gloopy, whatever, either I would just say stirring them too frequently and cooking them at too high of a temperature. So beans really like to be cooked low and slow. And yes, that's annoying if you're in a rush, but beans are not a food that you make when you're in a rush. So that's
Do you think
that.
she's maybe over soaking them or something too?
No,
soaking
I hope
them
she's
for
not
2
soaking
days
at
or
all.
something?
No, that doesn't matter. Soaking is
Well,
such
I
a
know you don't believe in that.
silly myth. It's like soak for 5 years and like soak for 5 minutes. You know, it's how you cook the beans. It's not how you soak the beans. Honey, it's not how you
If you're like
soak the
my
beans.
mom, it's not about the soak. My mom, she's using canned beans in the age of Rancho Gordos. So
She's using
maybe
canned
there's a
beans
chance
to
that there's a
make-
canned bean.
She's using canned beans to make like frothy
Anything.
beans.
Anything, Allison. Anything.
I mean,
Yes.
I love canned beans. I definitely use canned beans as like
But not for your brothy beans.
no. Well, that's the thing. That's like an entirely different recipe. But like, I'm a huge fan of canned products. When I'm like, I got to eat now. I got to eat in the next half hour. I'm not trying to make a bean from scratch when I have a half an hour. Like, so if you're trying to rush your dried bean, yeah, you're in the wrong game. Don't rush the dried bean.
The BFA free can for sure, though, right? Like
Yeah,
you know,
BPA free
the-
for sure.
The BFA
BFA
photo agency.
Okay, yeah.
too.
Okay, New York girly.
Susan's
been out and about.
showing my true self. Okay, so that's really good to know though, because I guess I never thought about the stirring. My beans come through pretty firm and like kind of great, but I'm following the recipe, and I'm not thinking about the stirring. So that's a good question.
Yeah, I think so.
Hi, Alison. My name's Tegan. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. And I had a question for you about the graham cracker crust that you use in the citrus cheesecake. I've also tried to make it with the salted lemon tart. And mine always turn out too crumbly and they don't hold together or hold shape the way that yours seem to look like in the photos, despite following the ingredients and the directions exactly. I'm wondering if you know why this is happening and what I can do. Should I be adding more butter to make it hold together better? Please help me. Thank you so much for answering my question. Love you so much. Bye.
That's really sweet. So one thing you should know is that I never change the recipe for a photo. If you see what it looks like, I am just following my own recipe with the exact same ingredients because I don't believe in bait and switch. I don't believe in showing something that you can't achieve at home. So if something looks different or you're having an experience, I think the culprit is almost always in the way something is being measured or the technique is like something's getting lost in translation. It's difficult to write a recipe and have it, mean the same thing to everybody. So for something like that, like it could be like the crumb of like the cookie is too fine or not fine enough, or like, the way that you're not like working it enough because it does need to be mixed a certain amount. But there's a YouTube video of that specific recipe. So you should be able to see also like what it looks like. I will say that crust is pretty delicate. Like it's not that sturdy. But in the context of a cheesecake where like the filling of the cheesecake helps to sort of bind the crust, especially after it gets chilled because of all that butter, it does like hold its shape. It is sort of on the edge of like too crumbly versus like too firm or something, I guess, or like too buttery. Because too much butter to make everything hold together, and like then it's gonna just be like weird butter. So I would say that it's like watch the video, maybe mix it more than you think, because if the crumbs are too coarse or too fine, you're gonna maybe run into some issues. But also, if you're like, I added 2 more tablespoons of butter and I prefer it that way, it's easier to work with, then like go for it. That becomes like your choice and your journey, and that's not wrong.
Hi, Allison. This is Katie in England. I work a job that takes me to many remote locations. So I find that packing a lunch is such a chore, and it's not like I can pop out for a sweet green or a kava or whatever people eat. So I was just wondering if you had any ideas for like a packed lunch that is less of a chore, easy, but also kind of good for you. Okay, cool. Take care. Thanks so much. Bye.
Susan, what do you do for lunch? I'm like not a lunch person.
So my dream lunch is leftovers, something from the night before. Like last night I had made fish and broccoli rabe and rice and like maybe some iteration of that. But today I made, and I'm also like always in a rush, don't always want to buy my lunch. And especially like you just get fatigue from like the bouleries that are available, like a kava, like she said.
The bouleries? Wow, that is an excellent phrasing that I've never heard before. I'm obsessed with it.
We are living, all we have is bowls. We have a wealth of bowls. Today I made a turkey sandwich with cheddar cheese, pickled onions, mayonnaise, mustard, and on Mike's Killer Bread or Killer Mike's Bread. I don't even know. Have you had that bread, by the way?
Pre-sliced, gluten-free one?
No, it's not actually.
Then no.
But it's sprouted.
Okay. Nice.
It's like a lunch that you would have in elementary school. And that's because of time. And also because I'm like, kind of like, it's like a soothing, healing, calming food. It's like comfort food, a sandwich. I know you're not into sandwiches, Allison.
No, but I'm into everything you said mostly.
Yeah, like mostly. And then like two pickles.
Yeah, like would I rather have it in a bowl? I don't know.
Right. 2 pickles and salt and vinegar chips. Like actually what I think my dad used to pack me for lunch in elementary school. And that is because I have 0 time. And I also like am hungry and need something like I can really like feel like it doesn't make me feel gross. It doesn't like weigh me down. It's not that expensive. Like it's all the things. It's economical in all the ways. Time, money, everything.
I'm just realizing now that I think like the bowlery concept, like bowls might be the one thing to get me to prefer a sandwich. Like I just can't do the bowls anymore.
I
don't want it. I don't need it. Okay. It's like I don't like all my food touching like that.
I like a melange of things. Would I make myself 12 individual salads and then put them all together at home? Probably not. But like, yeah. I mean, I put so much in my bowls and they end up being $37. Like I ordered Chopped yesterday and it was $37.
Did they charge you by the ingredient? I'm just unfamiliar.
Yeah, kind of maybe. No, true. But no, I think we should start simplifying things, and I think we do sandwiches. And that's like the radical idea for late 2023. But like, what do you eat for lunch at home? What are you doing for lunch?
I don't know.
Cheez-Its?
I don't know. I didn't have lunch today, but I'm starving. I don't know. I'm also a huge leftover person. I'm also a huge like other things in containers that I eat individually. I just don't like all my food touching, which is why I don't care for sandwiches. Is why bowls are sort of a non-starter. But get me like, 3 tiny little Tupperwares full of stuff that like I can snack on, like a greens and a chickpea and a whatever, like that I'm into. But if I'm home alone, I do eat a lot of soups. I'll also do like if I have leftover rice, I will do like a quick sort of like crispy rice with like greens tossed in, maybe some tofu or an egg and herbs. And that's like 4 ingredient bowl, quote unquote, is about as much as I can handle. And like that feels really good to me. And that's like less of a bowl, more of like a fried rice. But something that I can like use up stuff in my fridge. Because I'm trying to like really focus on not wasting food. And if I have like, that's why I'm so horny for beans and like chickpeas, because I can make a giant batch of them and then eat them many different ways throughout the week. And I'm more likely to be like, oh, I have these really beautifully seasoned, well-cooked beans or chickpeas that I can do something very quickly with versus like now I have a can of beans or chickpeas that like kind of require a lot of work for me to make them delicious. So I know everyone's like, stop talking about beans. And I'm like, no, I won't. I won't ever do it. So not until every person looking for lunch can make their own brothy beans.
Remember you used to say something around the lines, and maybe you don't do this anymore, maybe you do. Did you used to like boil a bunch of potatoes at the beginning of the week and just put them in your fridge so like anytime you want a snack you can like dip them in salt or like drizzle some olive oil or something? Didn't you used to do that?
Yeah, and I still do.
I like an idea like that You know what? Like, it's like boil some eggs at the
Yeah.
beginning of the week, bring them with some cheese, bring them with some crackers to
Yeah.
work, like a little girl lunch.
Girl lunch. Oh,
You
don't.
know.
We're going to edit that one
Girl
right on out.
lunch.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm a huge like
I know.
slice of cheddar, jammy egg, cucumber, boiled potato, like snack. I want many flavors, many textures, many tastes.
And like little Tupperwares of that, and make it like a little thing where you dip and you like,
Yeah.
I
We're
love that for a
mezze-ing.
lunch too. I
We're
think that's a really
tapasing.
nice lunch. A meze.
All right, next and final caller.
Hey, Allison. This is Taylor from Columbus, Georgia. My question, and I know the whole hotline thing isn't just for food and cooking, but my question is, I am newly seeing a new girl, and she wants me to cook for her. Well, my concern is I've only ever cooked for my grandma before, so how do I make a dinner feel more date-like rather than, oh, it's family dinner night? Any hot takes other than serving up caviar and champagne would be really appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, caviar and champagne is too soon for a person you're just seeing, but I do appreciate the sentiment. Once you've like really locked it in, that's like a happy 6 months, babe type of thing. But the only thing that you could, I feel like the answer here is really more what not to make versus what to make. But like no soup, just full on no soup. That soup is saying elderly. And as a person it's their favorite food, I love soup. I would eat it every day, 5 times a day. But if I'm trying to like be hot and sexy and romantic and like showcase like that part of some of my personality, I'm not going to be like soup. Although when Max proposed, he made me matzo ball soup. But that's because it's my favorite food and he was showing me he cares and loves me. Like that's different. But that was like not sexy.
What did
that
you
was
make
romantic.
for him?
Nothing.
What was your first meal format?
Oh, I was like, he proposed to me.
For your future husband. No, I know.
What is
I know,
the first thing I made for him? I made him, what was it? It was probably, it may have been meatballs like over polenta, but it wasn't like red sauce Italian American style meatballs. It was like, they were kind of light and like burst tomato-y and like with like herbs like over polenta. Like it felt kind of like fresh and fun. But I think I did that because I was like, these kill. Like they're so impossibly delicious that like, and it was a cozy time of year. So we wanted like cozy food without being like a big braise or something like that. It felt like casual enough. And I didn't want to like flex immediately. I feel pretty self-conscious about like other people's perception of me and like what I must cook for people. And I'm like, I'm making you a roast chicken or meatballs pretty much all the time. Like that's my go-to because that's like what I enjoy eating. And it's a humble food, you know?
I also just see you being like seductive and like dragging your finger through the polenta and like low key like popping it in your mouth. Like I feel like there's a seduction element to that. I like that.
I do eat with my hands, Susan. Yeah.
I see that. I know. I think that that's what she should make.
Yeah, that like
Meatballs
also
and
says like
polenta.
I'm chill and I don't need to like impress you with something elaborate, but I know how to make really good tasting food that is going to make you feel like warm, but like also impressed that like you're such a good cook, you know, and like this is food I really want to eat and I can't wait to come back for more. Anything like that. I'd say my second is always like some version of like a roast chicken with like a perfect salad and like mustard greens or something like that. Like something like transportive. Like we're in Paris. We're at a bistro. We are casual. We have a roasted potato. We're like, you know, nothing fussy. Nothing that says like I'm high maintenance or I'm trying to impress. Something that says I'm confident in my cooking and like I like to do it. And that's how I say I care and I like you and I care and I like you. So here's a nice chicken.
I love that. That makes you feel love.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that was really beautiful. And I feel like I'm going to like pause in like a half hour and have like an emotional hangover, but not in a bad way. I just feel like today I was like very ready to talk about feelings and personal growth. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of a weird thing to do.
Love you.
Yeah, I love you. Thank you for always making me feel like that's like a cool way to be and not a like undesirable way to be. You make me feel like very excited to be a feelings-based person because I like that.
Oh my God,
about
don't
you.
make me cry.
No, cry.
It's just nice. It's nice when you're just feeling overwhelmed by the world to just pause and talk to a girlfriend. I never realized how healing that can be and grounding.
Yeah. And also just, I know logistically you're very busy and like running a very successful business in New York and doing it largely, you know, by yourself with a small team, and taking the time out to do this, which feels maybe frivolous, is really important to me. And I just am really grateful for you. So thank you.
Oh, anything. Always. So happy to be here.
This episode is brought to you by Maker's Mark. Solicited Advice is hosted by me, Alison Roman. Our podcast is produced by Jennifer Sullivan with the help of Elena Rodriguez Villa. Technical production and editing is handled by Red Rock Music, and our theme music was created by Joseph Monroe. And for questions, sponsorship inquiries, or anything else, please visit us at AlisonERoman.com/podcast.